All right, guys, we are back. Thank you for your patience. Let's see if we can get Regina back on. Um, Thank you for joining us before. So if you can just hop back on, because we're back on. And I'm going to wait till I see. Hey, Bean Lady, thank you for joining us again. Um, hey, Beverly, hi. We're just going to wait for her to come back on. I think she has to fix her camera. Hey, thank you for joining us again. So we're waiting for Regina to join us. So her camera was not fixed properly, and we could only see like from her nose down. Hey, Kimberly, thank you for coming back on. So we're waiting for her to rejoin again so we can start. I think it would be really awkward if we had a whole interview with just her nose down. So we're going to give her that time to adjust and for her to join us. So happy New Year, guys. I hope you had an awesome week so far. Hope your Christmas and New Year's was wonderful, and you are ready for the new year. I know I'm definitely ready for the new year, and I'm ready to have these conversations. Like I said before, our focus for the year will be Black trauma, and that's because there are so many conversations that are needed, that we need to have as a Black community, right? Not to say that other communities are not impacted, but there are conversations that we need to have as a Black community that impact us, that we are not having or having very few conversations about. So this is why I wanted to dedicate this year, and then use this space and time to have those conversations. And I thought it would be really great to start off with health, right? Because so every year we usually do New Year's resolutions, and one of the probably most popular New Year's resolutions, great for us to start this conversation and start off our focus on Black trauma with this discussion. So I think Regina is coming on now. Hey,
Hi. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to adjust. This is my first live.
no,
Thank
no
you for bearing with
problem.
me. Thank you.
So we were just talking. I was just saying, of course, Happy New Year to everyone and bringing everyone in. And just talking about the need to have this conversation within the Black community, and just emphasizing not that other communities are not impacted by things, but there are conversations that we need to have in the Black community that we are not talking about or having very few conversations. So I wanted to just start off with that. So let's get started, right? So welcome, Regina. Thank you so much for your yes and agreeing to do this, and being the first person to kick this off this year.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you so much for having me. This is such a loaded topic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a topic that I talk to my friends about a lot because we do a lot of check-ins, emotional check-ins, because a lot of my friends are in fields where they're givers, right? They're nurturers. They're in education. They're in the medical field. We've endured and are still enduring a pandemic. And a lot of us suffer in silence because we've been taught, and we'll go into that shortly because it is definitely based off of our history as a people, to just continue to push forward, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times as people of color, because we are disenfranchised and we don't live in a place of privilege per se, and I know that that might sound, we're in fight or flight mode, we're in survival mode, we have to make ends meet. We have families, we have children, we have responsibilities. We work jobs, and I know that this is something that was instilled in me as an HBCU graduate. I remember being told by my professors, you have to work harder. There is an
Mm-hmm.
expectation that you have to work harder. You don't get to slack off. You don't get to dress unprofessionally. You don't
Mm-hmm.
get to speak improperly. And all of that stays with you. So you're in a constant state of anxiety. You know, am I performing? Am I doing my job duties to the satisfaction of those who are over me, right? Even if we feel like we're
Yeah.
doing a satisfactory job. And to wake up every day in a perpetual state of, I'm uncertain, in
Mm-hmm.
a perpetual state of, you know, I don't know what I'm walking into when I walk into the building, to the office, to the hospital, to the school, wherever you work. If you're an entrepreneur, what if we have another shutdown? What if I don't generate enough revenue?
Mm-hmm.
How much revenue am I generating in these off seasons? It's a perpetual state of stress.
So, Regina,
And
before you get to that,
yeah,
because I know, because that's a whole lot to unpack. I want everyone to know, to the best of your comfort, right? Your story and how you started on this journey and how you were led here. So, if you could just start us off with that, I think that would allow us to get to know you a little bit better and to know your passion about this.
absolutely. So in my 20s, I began to notice changes in my body. I
Mm-hmm.
noticed I was always fatigued. I was in a constant state of fatigue. And to be, you know, 25, 26, 27, feeling like you need 10 hours of sleep and then waking up and still feeling exhausted and hearing people say, that's because you're sleeping too long. I didn't understand what was happening in my body, but I knew something was wrong, right? I
Mm-hmm.
knew that there was something happening. And
Mm-hmm.
as a woman, we often hear like, you're anemic, right? You're anemic. Women menstruate every
Mm-hmm.
21 days. You're anemic. So we chalked it up to you're anemic. My doctor and I, that's just what it was.
Okay.
And it got to a point where I actually was working out. What happened was I was working out consistently after work. I was going to a gym,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, you have all of these products that just seem like people are having great success. And I've never been a GNC kind of product junkie,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm like, wow, like maybe I should try protein shakes. Maybe I should um, add protein supplements into my smoothies, or just, you know, it was protein powder that you just had to add water to. And that would be something quick. When I got home from the gym, I would just make a protein shake, and that would just hold me over until I could get dinner made.
Okay.
And at a certain point, I began to feel even worse in my body. And I remember being at work, and like I broke into a cold sweat, and I felt like I was going to faint. And I work in
Okay.
education, so I'm in front of my students, and I felt like I'm going to just pass out in front of my kids. And I had to leave work early for the first time ever. And I went to my general practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
and they took blood work, they took urine, and he, if I'm not mistaken, I was 27 at the time, and I'm 41 now. So if I think back, if I'm not mistaken, he gave me a prescription thinking that I had not a UTI, but that I had some kind of bacterial infection. He
Okay.
called me on a Saturday, and I know with my doctor being Jewish that that is not normal. And
No,
he
no.
called, yeah, right. He called me and he told me not to take the prescription. And that
Mm,
was alarming to me.
okay.
And I didn't take it, and I went back into his office to see him, and he told me that I needed to go see a urologist for further testing, because based off of my urine, I had protein uremia. I think I'm saying that correctly for those out there in the medical field, which means that you have an excessive amount of protein in your urine, which
Okay.
at 27, what does that mean? Like, I
Yeah.
have no idea what that means to me. Um, I talk to people now and, people are 55, 60 years old and they can't tell you what their kidneys, liver, pancreas, what none of it is, like what it does to the
Yeah.
body and the purpose of its function. So at the time, I didn't know what that meant. But when I think back in hindsight, and I won't give myself a lot of credit, I will say I think it was just wisdom that came from God to say, see it through. See it through. Go to the urologist, pay the co-payment. If the urologist can't find anything, which they didn't, they told me they couldn't help me, go back to your general practitioner and ask them, what is my next step? Don't just let this thing lay dormant.
Okay.
And my general practitioner then referred me to a nephrologist, which is a kidney doctor. Nephro in Greek means kidneys.
Okay.
So
I
it's
was
a nephrologist.
going to say because we don't know what that means.
I didn't know that either.
Thank you
Okay,
for
I
explaining.
had a coworker tell me that. So um I went to this nephrologist and he is my doctor till this day. So
Hmm.
14 years later, he is my nephro. He is one of the top 10 nephrologists in the country. He is very well respected in the kidney community in New York. And if you are in the kidney field, hospital related or in private practice, if you are a top-notch doctor, he knows you. And that was
Okay.
impressive to me. When I went into his
Hmm.
office, I saw that magazine cover on the wall, and I stopped and I read it, and I felt like I'm going to see a doctor who knows what he's doing. He's knowledgeable. I had Googled him. And I saw all of his credentials. I saw the hospital that he was affiliated with. He's the head nephrologist at that hospital. That was very impressive to me. And I felt comfortable. I felt like he's about business. And I
Hmm.
now being a part of this health journey, and because I see the doctors so often, I understand that their time is really, really sensitive. But I also believe you have to come in as a sharpshooter with your questions. You have to come in being an advocate for yourself, asking the right questions. I'm 27. What does this mean to me? For me and to me, right? What does this
So I want,
mean? What
if
is
I
next
could
step?
just, if I could just stop you for a second, because you talked about something that was really important that we often don't do when we go
Mhm.
see the doctor, right? You said you Googled this doctor, you saw his credentials and all of the things that he had accomplished on his wall. A lot of times we don't do that. We just go to the doctor. We don't do our research. We don't do any of those things. Can you
Yes.
talk about why that is so important for us to do? That we need to really just be an advocate for ourselves and that we need to do the research. Can you talk about why that's so important?
It's so important for so many reasons. Let's dispel this myth. And I know people say this like, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. Please stop
Mm-hmm.
choosing a doctor simply off the basis that they're black. Can we
Mm-hmm.
just 2023, like one of those memes like in 2023, can we just stop doing this? You need to do your research. I have gone to doctors that are melanated and the office did not look up to standard. It wasn't up to par. Um, I was so focused on them being a doctor of color that I didn't do my research other than, oh, the name sounds like they're black. Like, let me try this dentist. Let me
Mm-hmm.
try that. Like, no, it's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that I've learned through my journey because I do see a lot of different specialists that's just not the base. The basis shouldn't just be that, right? So, um, and then we can go back historically, right? We can go back historically, and we can't negate. And people say, well, stop blaming slavery, stop blaming the Reconstruction era, stop blaming what happened in 1942. No, it's all relevant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we pass these things down generationally. We pass them down generationally because grandma said, the doctor said this and that, and grandma never challenged what the doctor said. So
Mhm.
grandma believed the doctor was next to Jesus. And if the doctor
Mhm.
said it, it was sound doctrine, and that's what they listened to, right? But then we've later found out that grandma could have been here longer if grandma would have done things differently, or if grandma had an advocate, or grandma may not have understood certain things
Mhm.
because grandma and grandpa didn't come from the Google generation, right? So certain things, um, we we have to do better, right? Because a
Yeah.
lot of what we do is cultural, and we pass these myths down, we pass these practices down, and we have this mindset that has been instilled in us from what we've been taught, right? And I hear it from my friends from the Caribbean. They laugh about it like, yeah, because Haitians do this and Jamaicans do this, and
Mhm.
being Southern, having Southern roots and being of African American descent, we say the same thing, right? And we laugh
We
about
do.
it like, just put Vicks on your chest and lay down. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
I've had COVID twice, and that's not it. Okay, that's not the
Mhm.
answer. I'm
Mhm.
going to see a pulmonologist. Okay, I'm
I-
going to get on my
I'm
My Chart
gonna.
app. I'm going to
I'm sorry to stop
find
you,
a
but
pulmonologist.
I'm gonna just there's some comments in the chat that I want to recognize. So if you guys have any questions or comments, because we're going to recognize them as we're having this conversation. Miss S. Williams said that part right there when you were talking about that.
Mhm.
Eunice the realtor said, I'm guilty of that. Someone else said, I agreed. Hey, Barbie, baby, how are you? And Miss Williams is just saying, like, yay, like I hear you. So just to go back to the conversation of myths, right?
Right.
A lot of times, as Black people, we have the myth that if we get a Black doctor, right, they are more than likely to understand what we are experiencing, more so than someone else who is not of our culture.
Mhm.
So I would probably say, and I'm going to ask you to speak to this, I would probably say to a certain degree that maybe there is some truth in that, right?
Right.
But not at the point that we're going to compromise the level of care that we're going to get. So can you just talk a little bit about that as you're going on?
Absolutely. Sometimes we go in, and I'm guilty. If it's a Black female doctor, I immediately, and I had this situation like very recently, I expected a little, hey girl, hey, right? Like a little like, oh, and I had it with two separate doctors. I had it with a cardiovascular doctor, and I had it with a dermatologist, right? The dermatologist I found came highly recommended in a group that I'm in on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and I drove almost an hour and a half from my home, and I didn't get that. I didn't get that. I wanted to talk to someone that understood my skin, and not to say that she's not knowledgeable. She's connected to a very well respected hospital facility, but certain things just don't sit well with me. I am a patient
Mm-hmm.
that I'm in the doctor's office more than the average person, right? As a kidney transplant recipient, and
Mm-hmm.
even before that, just on my journey. So I'm kind of accustomed to certain things, and I understand again that your time is precious, but please don't tell me as a patient, well, you came in here for this and now you have 10 questions. Ma'am, I'm a kidney transplant recipient that's on a lot of medication. I have concerns about my hair. I'm a natural who colors, but
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed a change in my hair since I've had the transplant. So yes, I want to talk about my hair. I want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about skin care because I don't have skin issues, but I also know that the medications that I'm taking that are lifelong make you more susceptible to skin cancer. And I have lost loved ones in my family to cancer. And I'm going to dispel this myth right here, too. Black people can contract skin cancer. Okay. My Nana passed away of
Mm-hmm.
melanoma. So I'm going to say that. Okay. My family's from the beach. We lived on the beach. Okay. A lot of sun exposure growing up. And my Nana passed away of skin cancer. So I am a melanated person who goes to the dermatologist annually outside of my transplant
Mm-hmm.
because I need you to do a full body scan to make sure that I don't have anything. I don't care if it looks like a mole, a dot, any abnormalities. So I am proactive about seeing a dermatologist, which we all should be as people of color. Um,
Yes. Hmm.
so I went to her
Thank you
and
for the
I,
spelling out, Miss.
oh,
Hmm.
yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And, you know, I was all excited. I'm like, yay, I have um, my black girl sunscreen, and I wanted her to tell me what she thought about it because I like it. I think it works well. Does it make our skin ashy as black women? And she didn't know anything about the product. Okay. But I just felt like she was pushing products that were toxic, products that had a lot of chemicals that I shy away from. And knowing that I'm immune compromised as a transplant recipient, I don't expect you to be a nephrologist, but as a dermatologist, I'm sure you have a lot of patients that are not donors, I'm sorry, organ recipients.
Hmm.
And I'm sure that you know how susceptible we are to certain cancers. So why would I use products? I'm coming to you about skin cancer, right? Why would I use products that have cancer causing agents? It
Hmm.
just, the logic. And for me, it's bigger than, I'm just going to throw out names, right? If I get in trouble later, I have an attorney on retainer. Don't tell me to, use Eucerin. Please don't tell me
Uh-huh.
to use Aveeno,
Hmm.
and those products have toxic chemicals in them, right? So to me, I paid my co-payment. I took time out of my schedule I waited to see this doctor because she comes highly recommended, and I walked out and I got in my car and I felt very disappointed.
Hmm.
And I went back to my regular dermatologist in the city. I thought this was going to be just, better. Like I could park and I don't have to worry about the hustle and bustle of Manhattan. No, I'm going to hustle and bustle. Okay. It's one time a year. I'm going to leave extra early. I'm going to find a parking spot. Like I'm going to make the sacrifice because
Hmm.
this is my health that's at stake. And as people of color, we will hang out. I'm just going to call it what it is, y'all. We will find a parking spot to go to the Barclays Center. I'm speaking to my New York viewers, to go to wherever we want to go to see the concert. New Edition's coming. Somebody's in town. Mary J. Blige. And we will do, right? We will
Yes, we
make
will.
time.
Yes.
We will put money aside. Someone says, oh, I'm not going to doctors. Where? Oh, the co-payment's what? Guess what?
Hmm.
This $30 may help. That's right, Shannon. She said, pay $40. Do what you have to do
Listen,
because this is your life.
we got so
Okay?
many
This is your
comments in
life.
the chat.
Go
So
ahead. Let's
being
go
lady
for
was
it.
like, it's about money for some doctors when you made that comment.
Right.
Kimberly said facts. Uh,
Right.
William said pay the $40.
Pay the $40.
Okay, we good for now. Pay the
We
$40.
pay the $40 because guess what? When we go out to the crab crackety crack, we pay for the crab crack, right? So we have to prioritize. I love when I can speak candidly. This is why I went to HBCU, right? Because when you're talking to people, that we get each other, and I think we really have to think about so many components of the medical field. I've sat in the doctor's office and watched pharmaceutical reps come in with a roll cart full of drugs. Okay.
Mhm.
They come in with pens, they come in with pads, with all of these freebies so that they can entice the doctor to use their pharmaceutical product, right? This is what they
Mhm.
do. They give
Mhm.
samples. Something that we learned with my grandparents and my mom and I talked about this years ago was my grandparents' medication was so expensive, and my mom kept urging my grandparents ask the doctor for samples, right? Because our grandparents' generation, they don't challenge. The doctor
Yeah.
said, and that's just it. But then they'll go
Yep.
home and say, oh, I can't afford my diabetes, my Lancet strips. I can't afford the insulin. I can't
Mhm.
afford, right?
Mhm.
There's samples in the doctor's office.
Ask
They
for them.
have them there. And
Yep.
you have patients that are on a fixed income, that are elderly. You have to advocate for yourself. So, yes, you have pharmaceutical reps that come in. So when they give them these samples, yeah, you're giving me all of these little samples of Eucerin and Aveeno because there's a kickback from that. So be
Mm-hmm.
mindful not to throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? Because what we do is we say, see, they're all this way and all doctors are that way, and then we just don't go. There is a balance that needs to happen. And our community is very imbalanced as it relates to our health. We are on radical extremes, right? And this is where we cross over into dangerous territory. We have people on social media that are pumping out, do this, eat like this, don't do that, take this supplement, drink this flat tummy tea, do this, do that. And my own story, I didn't know that I had an underlying condition. So the whole time that I'm taking protein and I'm adding protein into my diet, this powdery protein that's made in somebody's factory, my nephrologist taught me this is enough. A palm size, Regina. You are not a bodybuilder. You don't need that much protein. So if I'm eating a chicken breast this size and I cut that thing up and put it in my salad for lunch, I'm good. I don't need to add, we don't need to add protein. So unless you have had a comprehensive workup, is what it's called, a comprehensive physical, you have had your thyroid checked, you have sat with a dietitian who has read your lab work, and then they can say, okay, as a 6'3", 250-pound man, you need X amount of protein per day. I want you to eat, 2 egg whites in the morning. I want you to add tuna to your salad. I want you to have X amount of ounces of chicken for dinner. We should not overdose on protein. So we have people in our community who might mean well, but who are telling people in juice bars, take this shot, do this, take this supplement. Says who, where, how, what. What works for you may not work for somebody who has diabetes, who may not work for somebody who has lupus because they have an autoimmune disease with inflammation in their body. It may not work for someone with sickle cell, right? We cannot walk into a juice bar and think that the person behind the counter is supposed to give you the cure for your situation. Get your spinach and your green juice and all that, but once we start adding supplements, we have to be careful. So we're on that radical extreme end, and then we just have the I don't care, and I'm just going to drink and smoke and eat crown fried chicken and bacon, egg, and cheeses, and like I'm just going to do that, and we all die of something. So this is what we're dealing with in our community, and this is why we have a healthcare crisis. This and so many other socioeconomic reasons and, lack of access to clean, healthy foods and things of that nature, and just a lack of knowledge. And at this stage, we're in the information stage. The lack of knowledge, and this may sound harsh, no excuses. Because if you don't know, I will say to a doctor, I need you to give me a printout of that, please, right? I need you to put that in my chart, because when I go home, I want to look this up. I want to go home, I want to read up on this, and I want to follow up with you. And you are the patient who advocates for yourself, because guess what? Even though you walk into a doctor's office and you feel subject to that principality, because it really is, of the medical system, it feels very intimidating. The doctor works for you. The doctor works for you. So if the doctor is not working as a part of your team, and the first time I ever heard that was when I had a transplant, right? Someone said, oh, thank you, so true.
Yeah.
When I had a transplant,
I'm trying to read some of the comments.
they work for you.
GHPM says the care and healthcare is going. Somebody else said so true. Okay, hon, I'm sorry.
No, go
you can keep going.
for it. I'm sorry. You have to interrupt me because I get on a roll and I become passionate about this thing. I really, really do. And when I was at NYU Langone, and I speak very highly about my transplant hospital because they are amazing. It was the first time that I ever felt like I had a team of medical professionals that were working together for the sake of my care. The nurse practitioner who looked like us,
Mm-hmm.
my nurse practitioner who I was in constant contact with more than my actual doctor. Shout out to all the nurse practitioners that work so hard and need to get paid like more than they get paid, right? Because you deal with them a lot more. That's it. We can't just take what Doc says. We must get
Yeah.
understanding and advocate for ourselves. Absolutely. The dietitian, my renal dietitian, renal means kidney, my surgeon, my transplant nephrologist. So I have my own nephrologist that diagnosed me after having a kidney biopsy and all of those things when I started to have a reaction to overdosing on protein. Um, that's my separate nephrologist that I've had since I was 27 when I was diagnosed. I have a transplant nephrologist as well. They meet, they review your labs, they come up with a comprehensive plan for you, they reduce dosage of medication or increase as needed. And just to make this applicable to our viewers, I'll give you a prime example. I had hypertension for many years as a result of the autoimmune disease that they found out that I had, which is what was causing the fatigue. And when I overdosed on protein, it led to me seeing my nephrologist, and immediately they said lupus. And I said, don't speak that over me until you know for certain. I took authority over that visit. Please don't start throwing out a diagnosis without knowing the facts. You take authority. It doesn't mean you get nasty. It doesn't mean you get frustrated. You grab your pocketbook, ladies, and you never go back to the doctor. This is your body. So whether you go back or not, they're still going to be in business and make money. Okay. The pharmaceutical industry is big. Whether you come back or not, like, they'll be okay. So but I took authority. Please be very mindful. I'm 27 years old. Okay. What you're saying is impacting the trajectory of my life. And
Yeah.
until we do a biopsy, no speculations, please. And that's okay to say that. It's okay
Mm-hmm.
to say that and to stand firm in it. But I knew that my doctor wasn't malicious, right? I just
Mm-hmm.
knew, like, this is like what they do. So they're just moving and grooving in their vein of what they do, the things they say. But at that point, I knew that he was knowledgeable and I knew he wasn't malicious. We did the kidney biopsy. They went into my back. They put me in a machine, like an MRI machine. They made a slit in my back, a very small incision, and they went into my back and took out 2 pieces of my native kidneys. And when I say native kidneys, meaning the kidneys you were born with,
Mm-hmm.
that's just transplant language. We say native kidneys and transplant kidney. Um,
Okay.
and they biopsied it to find out that it was IgA nephropathy, which is a very, very rare autoimmune disease that attacks both kidneys simultaneously. And it's very rare amongst African Americans, and it's very rare amongst women. So they have no clue where this came from. And this is why advocating is so important, because the vein that I was moving in at that time in my life, I was working a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I was young and I was just so zealous in my career that I was working Saturday school. I worked after school. My business was just booming. So I was vending and standing on my feet all day on the weekends. And I just never said no. And that's why I tell my friends now, I'm like, I see that burnout. Like, I see you. I'm telling you, I've been there. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
just on that survival mode, the trauma that comes from how we grew up, right? And the
Yeah.
fear of not having.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to not have, right? I want to be able to save. I need to be able to do this and to pay off my student loans, and just overworking myself and not setting healthy boundaries for the sake of making money. And not just making money, but also I was passionate about what I was doing, because I love education and I wanted to help my students outside of the classroom. So all of those things collided and led me to a place of go sit down somewhere. Because
Go sit
now,
yourself. Yeah, go sit yourself down somewhere.
Go
It's
find a
time to sit
chair.
down.
Go, you see all these chairs? Find one and go sit down.
Go
Because
sit down.
when am I replenishing, right? What I'm giving
Yeah.
out Monday through Friday on the weekends, I'm not replenishing. And
Mm-hmm.
even just going to church, it was laborious. Like I'm like, oh gosh, I have to get dressed. I have to do my hair. I have to put on shoes. Everything just took so much out of my body. And I was in graduate school. I did things very early on. So I was teaching, I was in grad school, and I was doing all of these things, and I was exhausted. So by the time I hit 30, my blood pressure was spiking outrageously. I wasn't paying attention um, to what it was. I just chalked it up to I have a headache. I
Mm-hmm.
have a headache. I'm tired. I have a headache. I'm tired. I have cotton
Mm-hmm.
mouth. I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I always so thirsty? It was that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And just going to see my nephrologist I think at that point, maybe I was going every 6 months. My blood pressure was it was spiking, and I had to go on blood pressure medication. And just fast forward to now, after being transplanted, my blood pressure has been perfect because we realized it wasn't that I had a poor diet, it was the inflammation in my body from the autoimmune disease that was spiking the blood pressure, right? So now that I have a healthy kidney, I don't have high blood pressure. This is why I'm saying this. When I was transplanted, and I'm not faulting the hospital because I get it, right? You've had
Mm-hmm.
hypertension for all of these years. We're just going to switch up your high blood pressure medicine because now you're on all of these other transplant meds. My question after seeing the doctor consistently, because after transplantation, you might as well just pitch a tent and live in a doctor's office because you're always there being monitored, right?
Mm-hmm.
My blood pressure was coming back perfect for the first time in at least 10 years. Why am I still on blood pressure medication? And I'm on two. Well, as a precautionary measure, I let them ride out with that for a few months. I finally said in one of my visits, I said, I want to be weaned off of high blood pressure medication. Let's lower the dose and see how I do. This was my own advocacy. Well, we're not the ones that put you on the blood pressure medication. What do I need to do, Dr. Such and Such? You have to go back to the cardiologist okay, so my pre-transplant cardiologist that put me on blood pressure medication. Got it. This all takes time. It's not convenient, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
working. None of it is convenient. You're spending money on all of these co-payments. Not convenient. But guess what? This is my heart that we're talking about. This is my heart. Okay? This is not my pinky toe hurts. This is my heart. So guess what? I'm going to do what I have to do to make sure that my heart is healthy.
Yeah.
I lost my father in 2017 to heart disease. My father was watching television, had a massive heart attack on the couch. And when they found my father, they thought he was taking a nap. I don't play around with heart disease. I don't play around with high blood pressure. If the
Mm-hmm.
food is too salty in a restaurant, I'm going
Not
to send it back.
eating.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
Not
I
eating.
can't play
Mm-hmm.
around with my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back to that cardiologist who I thought was an excellent, excellent doctor. And he was totally on board. So he said to me, I want to do an EKG and an echocardiogram. I said to him, I'm sorry, let me rewind. I asked him, I said, I want to do an EKG and an echo. He said, you just want to voluntarily? Yes. I said, because years ago you told me you saw a slow leak in one of the valves in my heart. And I asked you, once I'm transplanted and I no longer have high blood pressure, see, I was speaking life. I said, when I become
Mm-hmm.
transplanted, I'm not going to have high blood pressure anymore, right? If you're telling me my kidneys failing as a result, then that means once I have a working kidney, I'm no longer going to have high blood pressure. He said, that's a possibility. I said, okay, I believe God for that. New kidney, no hypertension. I said, when you saw that slow leak, you said to me, it can be reversed. Once your blood pressure is under control, that leak can stop. I'm holding you to that, doc. And now I'm asking you to write me a script for these 2 tests. Let's look at my heart again, because I want to make sure my heart is strong and that I don't have a slow leak. This is
That's good.
proactive
Yeah.
advocacy, not I'm waiting for somebody to tell me, no, 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 no. They have hundreds of patients. I know what the doctor said to me. I had surgery. My blood pressure's been great. Let's double check my heart again. This is the advocacy you have to have for yourself. Ladies, the GYN says, oh, it's only a small fibroid. Okay, I'll see you in 3
Mm-hmm.
months.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see you in 6 months. You saw something, I'm going to come
Mm-hmm.
back. What's the next step? The MRI, because the sono doesn't show. This is where the advocacy comes in. And people ask, well, how do you know that? We're the information generation. You start
Yep.
doing your
And
research, you
research.
ask your doctor these questions. Well, we don't know. Well, how will you know? Well, an
Mm-hmm.
MRI will show. Give me a script for an MRI. Let's like I am a living testament of, if there's a better way, show me the better way, right? I'll tell my doctors that if there's another way, what do I need to do? What do I need to eliminate out of my diet? Tell me what I need to do. And I had those necessary tests done for them to see that I no longer had a slow leak. But that gave me the peace of mind of knowing I no longer have to worry about that aspect of my health. And
Mm-hmm.
I have to maintain that. So I said to him, I said, do you think I should come back every year? He said, if that's what gives you peace, let's do it. Come back and let's check your heart every year. He said, but I don't think you need to worry about it if you don't have a spike in your blood pressure. If your numbers are perfect, then you don't have anything to worry about. If you see that it's elevating, then let's test again. That is advocacy.
Advocacy, yeah. So we have Kimberly, who said self-advocacy is important in the health field. Manisha, she said, that's it. We can't just take what Doc says. We must get understanding and advocate for ourselves. Bean, lady
Absolutely.
said exactly. Manisha Raja said yes. And welcome, becoming doctors joined. So, um,
Yes.
Regina, can you talk a little bit about like what your process, because our time is coming to an end,
Okay.
what your process was after having the transplant? And there's so many jewels that you dropped already, right? In regards to being a big advocate, in regards to doing your research. But what is it that you want us to take away, and how can we move forward, being that we are now in the beginning of 2023, right? We have this whole year to get our health journey together. So just talk about how it was for you and your healing process once you had the transplant, and share some other things that we could take away and do some adjustments in our own life, in our healthcare.
Absolutely. Um, wow, there's so much. There's so much. I
We can always do a
have a
part two, no problem.
we
We can always do a
we
part
still
two.
part. I have when I tell you I went in depth to research the history of why we are where we are. Like I like to look at the root to understand, the branches off. Like
Mm-hmm.
why are we leading in these areas, right? During my healing process, because it was extremely painful, it was humbling because historically we've been taught to be the strong black independent women that we're just
Mm-hmm.
supposed to. And I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking about Sojourner Truth's poem, Ain't I a Woman, right? We're supposed to just bear the lash, which she talked about being a slave. I believe she said I bore 13 children. We're supposed to be able to do all of these things, but ain't I a woman, right? We're not
Because that's
allowed to
how we were
have,
raised.
that's
That's
how
how
we
we were
were
raised.
raised.
We were taught that we have to bear everything. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, ladies. I'm looking at the comments. Thank you so much. And historically, because this is not just for the women, for black men, and I wrote a paper on this actually in grad school. The brute, right? The black man was always looked at as the brute, which means that you are supposed to just bear this burden of being almost like a workhorse. And it sounds very disturbing because it is, but that is historically what the Black man has been made out to be, right? Is the workhorse.
Mhm. Mhm.
They were examined like cattle. They auctioned off. So on both sides, we have to look at the entire history. We have to look at childhood patterns, right? We give
Yes,
our
definitely.
kids what we have access to. We give them, and I'm speaking to, especially our New Yorkers, because we have a corner store culture here. And when you work in the school system, it's the corner store culture. So if from the
Mhm.
time you are small, if your palate is used to Cheetos and Takis and all kinds of processed foods, the chicken nuggets that look like a little dinosaur, all of those things that you see people give their kids because of time constraints, because they live in neighborhoods where the supermarkets don't sell
Mhm.
fresh options. All of that plays a role. It is very hard to become an adult and now you expect me to eat kale chips, right? When I've been eating Cheetos my whole life, right? So
Yes.
we have to be honest that our palate has to totally be
That's
readjusted
it. Yeah.
to fit in the things that we've been neglecting. Like you just walk past like, what is this? Like you want me to eat leeks, like leeks. I don't even know what to do with this. And we just neglect, right? Or we cook our greens down to the nothingness. And,
Mhm.
we kill all of the vegetables out of it. And then I walk into some restaurants and I'm like, man, the food is great here, but Caribbean restaurants typically outside of cabbage, like what are you getting that's green, right?
Mhm.
Many Latina or Latinx, let me be clear, restaurants, what are you getting? You're getting iceberg lettuce, you may get a piece of avocado on it. So, and then we have all the sauces and the salt and all of those things. So when I was in recovery, I began to think about all of these things and I began to start researching and journaling. And what was so profound is when I came out of surgery and I was so doped up, I'm still trying to figure out like how I was cognizant for just that window of time, that one of the resident surgeons talked to me and she stood by my bedside. I will never forget this. And she looked at me. I came out of the OR and I'm in full blown oxygen, everything, right? And she says, we need what you have. And she said, there is a passion in you. You would have thought I sat down and had lunch with this woman and shared. I didn't even have the zeal that I have now, but
Mhm.
she saw something. I believe God used her in that
Mhm.
moment. And she planted a
Mhm.
seed and she said, NYU Langone needs you. She said, because your community, and I wasn't offended by it at all because I didn't take it as her saying anything other than what I know to be true. She said,
Mhm.
your community is in a crisis. And by the time people of color come here, we're just trying to save their lives. There's no prevention at that point. We're just trying to keep you alive. We're literally like resuscitating you.
Mhm.
And why is that? And she said, we need what you have here. So that began Catalyst for Kidney Care and that journey and just taken on so much of what I've learned, my experiences. I have experienced some hardcore discriminatory practices, okay?
Mhm.
NYU wasn't the hospital that I was originally listed with. And my mom was
Mhm.
supposed to be my donor. That's a whole nother story. And that hospital, which is well known, was not a transplant hospital. Even though a hospital has a well-known name, your special situation needs a
Absolutely.
specialty hospital,
And
right?
especially definitely.
Right. So,
Mhm.
so during my healing process, I was constantly having blood work and I had a visiting nurse service come here. The visiting nurse looked like me. I didn't like her bedside manner. I called visiting nurse service and I politely asked them, please don't send her back to my home. This is a pandemic. Okay, it was 2021. I had COVID in the heart of it, March of 2020, before transplantation. I am highly immune compromised. If you come in my home and you don't have a mask on, and you come in my home and you walk straight into my home, my mom answered the door because, I wasn't really mobile at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't take your shoes off. You weren't respectful of my space. I'm going to advocate for myself because I can't afford for you to bring anything from the outside. When my physical therapist comes in my house and she suits up,
Mm-hmm.
okay, she suits up at the door, full suit, okay, almost like a painter suit, to make sure her hair is covered, to make sure that she's not bringing anything from the outside into my home that can cause me to get sick. Not just COVID, but BK virus, CMV. There's so many airborne viruses that you don't think about and you don't have to until you are a transplant recipient. So that, to me, was unacceptable. So I'm now gathering all of this information, all of these nuggets to then say, oh my gosh, I'm overflowing with ideas and thoughts and feelings, and what can I do with
Mm-hmm.
this? And literally God gave me the word catalyst. And I'm like, catalyst? Like, what does that? I wanted something that sounded cute and catchy. I'm like, what in the world? And God gave it to me in a way that I would understand because he knows that I'm an English teacher, right? So he
Mm-hmm.
said, he made word associations. Catalyst, a catalytic converter. What does the catalytic converter do in a car, right? And a catalyst moves things forward. It's forward
Mm-hmm.
motion. It's putting action to the thoughts, to the feelings, to my experiences, to move forward in a direction in which our people who may not want to hear what a doctor or medical professional has to say because they feel like once you put that white lab coat on, it's immediate bias. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling you this because I've lived through it. I'm telling you this because I've been in intensive care more than one time. I'm telling you this because in 2015, I decided I wasn't going to take blood pressure medication anymore, and I was going to be my own doctor, right? And I don't like
Mm-hmm.
this. I don't like how it makes me feel. I'm not going to take it. And I remember being at work in bad shape. And I was in bad shape for quite some time. I was taking my blood pressure at home. I was in stroke, heart attack, that red number, that
Mm-hmm.
that that top, that tier that says like 911, get you behind to the ER.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for about 7 days straight and going to work and just popping the Tylenol and ignoring that the headache was from my blood pressure spiking, which eventually led to me being in intensive care and having to be on bed rest at home for a week. And guess what? I didn't want to take off work before, but I was forced to take off work,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
your body will force you to go grab a seat and sit down.
And sit down
So
somewhere.
sit down
Sit
somewhere,
down somewhere.
and it's all
Yeah.
of that. It's the guilt of, oh, if I take off work, then I'm going to be behind in
Mm-hmm.
this because I have to do this and I
Yeah.
have this and I have this and I have that.
Because we're
And that's why
workaholics. We're
we're
workaholics. We work
workaholics.
all the
We
time.
work
Yes.
all the time. And I've gotten to a place now where I have seen so many of my colleagues make it so close to retirement. And then the next thing you know, we're at their funeral, right? We're saying to their family outside of the church, the funeral home, I'm so sorry. They was such a great, math teacher, such a great person. And I had to reevaluate my life. You are so welcome. I had to reevaluate my life and prioritize what was important because I was pouring from an empty cup, and we say it, but like empty cup is like I'm in intensive care. The nurses are looking at me like, you're too young for this. Like, what are you doing to yourself that you're here? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm scaring my mom, like all of these things, the people that are in my life that care about me, I wasn't sharing the totality of and the severity of what was happening. So I was doing what I get on people now. Oh, I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm fine. And then we grow up.
Mm-hmm.
If you're, in church, you know, I'm blessed and highly favored. No, your arm is hanging out the socket as you're telling me you're blessed and highly favored. Like, this is what's happening to us. Like, we're literally in a state of emergency telling people just pray about it. We're in a state of emergency and we're lying, like through omission, by telling people that we're okay.
Mm-hmm.
And having lost my father the way that I did, having lost loved ones in my family that did not share with us that they didn't feel well, and we found things out in stage 4. And I'm speaking on both sides of my family. And the people that love you, your family's left to pick up those pieces because we're not sharing the truth about what's really happening with us. And that comes from so many things, right? Just psychologically, like if you tell a child, get up, stop crying, there's nothing wrong with you, and there's blood pouring from some part of their body, that sticks with you. There's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
And we
And it
operate
stays
in
with
that
you.
vein.
And
Right. We
it
operate
stays with you, and you take that into your adult life. If you're told that as a child, that, like you said, there's nothing wrong with you, get up, that stays with you, and you take that into your adult life, and you take it into your adult relationships as well. Not just your life, but that impacts your relationships as well.
because it's all about, I'm not being heard, right? Like, I can't
Mm-hmm.
communicate this. I hear my male friends say this all the time. Like, you think I could sit down and talk to my guy friends about what I'm feeling? Like, they don't. They want to know about the game, okay? Like, we can have superficial conversations, but as a man, like, how am I going to have a conversation about a prostate exam? Women are more likely to sit down and talk about things that we've endured, right? And like, listen, my gynecologist is great, and this has happened, that's happened. But for the most part, as a people, we suppress so much. And what I say to people in my life that I love and I care about, it's selfish. It's selfish because we love and we care about you, and you're so busy being prideful and preserving yourself that you're not
Mm-hmm.
considering that when you're gone, somebody is picking up a lot of somebodies are picking up the pieces because we didn't know how to help you. And it's
Because we didn't know what was
traumatic.
wrong. We didn't know
We didn't
truly what
know.
was wrong.
So the
And there's so many
person,
times when people pass away that, you find out they were suffering with this, they were suffering for that. And they're like, and you're like, well, how come they never said anything? How come they never shared or shared it with somebody at least or spoke up about it? And so, and like you said, the ones that are left behind are kind of left and bewildered, wondering what happened, what
yeah,
was the cause, but we're left behind. We're
we're
left
left
behind to pick
behind.
up the pieces.
We're still operating in that, like here in New York, the numbers have been all over the place, right? There's RSV, this is that. And I could tell you about 8 people in my circle were sick recently. And some got COVID tested and found out I'm positive. Let me act accordingly. And some
Mm-hmm.
were like, oh no, I didn't go. I just stayed home. And absolutely not. Like, it's not okay, right? It's not okay. You're going out. You're still amongst people. You're not telling people the truth. And I go through that now. People tell me, oh, I haven't been. Listen, I'm not doing a song and a dance about COVID. I am immune compromised. I have gone through 2 bouts and 2 different strains. My doctor said to me, you can't afford to get sick again. Let's be clear, okay? You can't afford to get sick again. So if you are around people that don't respect that boundary and who, like, you still wearing a mask? Yes. And guess what? Everybody needs to just respect people's boundaries because not everyone is willing to open up and share why because of those reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't either. It literally took so much out of me to put this out there, and I only did it publicly like a month and a half ago. I've been holding on to this. And when I had my first event for Catalyst for Kidney Care, when I had my bowling party, my girlfriend called me crying afterwards. And I thought something happened on the ride home, like she got into an accident. And she said, don't you ever do this to me. And I understood because my friend, which was her sister, died of lupus and died of lupus tragically. Like, got off the
Mm-hmm.
phone with her sister, all right, I'll talk to you later, and died in her bed in her 30s. And she said, don't you ever, she said, you know what we went through with my sister. In all of these years, you've been going through this since you were 27 and you didn't share.
Yeah.
She said, you
Yeah.
didn't allow people to love on you. You didn't allow people to say, you know what, I understand why you have to cancel today, girl. Like, it's all right. I'll check up on you later. I didn't allow because I didn't want to disappoint the people in my life that I loved and I cared about. And because I was always doing, and people expected me to always plan, execute, cook for something, help decorate, show up, the last person to leave, put the chairs away. Like, I'm always jumping into action to help. Saying no to me sounded like I was being rude and selfish, not realizing that it's just a healthy boundary. And if
Mm-hmm.
people understood and if you educated them, then they would say, if they love and care about you, girl, I get it. But that's a whole nother topic. We have so many stigmas,
Yeah.
right? The women in
Yes.
my life right now who are going through fertility issues, they're not even telling their family members, because we're still in a state where we're looking at things like IVF. Like, what are you talking about? Like, rich people do that. Like, what,
Mm-hmm.
you going through what? And we're still stuck in a very reconstructive era, post slavery, and I hate to say that, but like this mentality that if I don't know something, I'm not going to bother to learn it. I would just rather just make comments that are insensitive. Like, people say, oh, you gain weight because I'm on steroids. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Take steroids for 6 months and come back to me and show me your abs are steel. I don't care how
Mm-hmm.
fit you are. Take it for 6 months. Now, I'm not talking about you took it because you had an asthma attack for 2 weeks. Take it for 6 months and come back to me and let me know how that works out. And we're just insensitive sometimes towards one another. And we need to
Mm-hmm.
just normalize giving people grace that we want extended to us. You don't want somebody to come up to you and say, girl, look like your hair falling out. You don't know what people are experiencing. I have friends on this line right now. One of my good friends, we've been friends since we were teenagers, who was diagnosed with breast cancer and shared her journey very openly. And I'm sitting back like, wow, this is amazing to me. Having a double mastectomy in your 30s, having to cut all your hair off, your complexion changing in your 30s. Who are you to say that someone looks a certain way when you don't know? Toni Braxton's sister, people talk so bad about her. She was the biggest of the Braxton sisters, and she lost a lot of weight. And as soon as they realized she was losing a lot of weight, she was gone. Right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is what we do. This is what we do. And even most recently, looking at Instagram and Albie Shore's story. And I said, I wonder why no one said anything that Albie Shore was in a coma for almost 3 months. Because of public scrutiny. Public scrutiny and what people might say and speculations of what people might think. And let people share their stories when they're ready, and take a moment before you make comments, before we're insensitive. And if we don't understand something, it's okay to ask the person if it's okay to ask a question, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I've had people say, like, is it okay for me to ask you, like, where did they put the other kidney? Wow, you have three? I thought they took out the other two. Like, they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And ask me respectfully, and ask for permission to ask somebody a question. And I've had people say things to me that I don't think they realized were hurtful, but it was hurtful because in the media, we like what's popular becomes the focus, right? Like breast cancer there's so much awareness, and now it's driving me nuts that people are wearing pink like it's just a fad. Like, no, this is chronically a plague amongst women.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is not
Mm-hmm.
just let me buy a pink tutu. This is bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have issues that plague our community like kidney disease, and people like kidney disease like,
What's that?
well, at least you ain't got
Yeah.
cancer.
Yeah.
And I literally had to say to someone, you can be healed from cancer, but unless God heals you supernaturally from kidney disease, it's chronic for the rest of your life. Okay? So there's no coming off of the meds. You can come off of chemo. You can't come off of transplant medications. There is no, like, you went from stage 5 kidney disease to now you're stage 1, or you don't have it. It's something that it just progressively gets worse and worse and worse. So there are things that we say to one another out of error, whether we say them, with sometimes people are just rough around the edges, whether it's malicious or not, but we need to just be cognizant of that. And I did a photo shoot this weekend, and that was the premise of my photo shoot with my team was I'm representing for all the women out there that have scar tissue, because my belly, all the weight that I gained, it's back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm at my heaviest weight. My,
Mm-hmm.
the stomach that I lost is back. I'm representing. If you've had any kind of surgery where they've had to go in through your abdomen, this is what I'm representing. These are real bodies. I'm not going under the knife to get anything removed. I'm going to work hard, and with God's grace, hopefully I can get back into some kind of shape, considering what the steroids do. But let's just be mindful of how we treat each other, because you don't know what someone is enduring. And let's stop using culture. Well, that's
Mm-hmm.
just how we speak, because we're from, doesn't make it
Mm-hmm.
acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
When you know better, then do better. Because if it was you, how would you feel if someone said something and you were battling with a chronic illness and then you had to sit with that thing? I know I'm gaining weight. Trust me, I know. I know what's happening to me. We don't need a reminder when we know what's
Exactly.
happening. So I think that that's
Yeah.
that's that's a takeaway.
Thank you so much, Regina. So before we end, first of all, I'm seeing in the comments. First of all, it's too many comments for me to even read. I just see be kind, amen, mindfulness. You're
Yay!
gorgeous in every
Oh,
way.
thank
You
you.
are alive, sis, and we thank God that you are alive and still with us.
Amen.
Social media is evil. Yeah, we need part two. So I think we're going to have a part two. That's
Yes.
just what it is. We have a lot to talk about, and we will definitely arrange that. How can we support Catalyst? How can we support you? What can we do? How can we follow you? We need all of those
Oh,
details.
thank you, ladies, in the comment. Oh, I will not get emotional. I'm emotional internally, but because once I become Waterworks, it's gonna be hard to reel me back in. Um, I see. This is my tribe that's in here. My friends, like my
Yeah,
tribe is serious.
absolutely.
Um,
Beautiful, beautiful.
I I have an Instagram page. It's so funny because I was talking to my team this weekend. And I was saying, I was like, I don't create content. I'm not like, this is just too much. It's so much pressure to constantly create content. And I'm in the grocery store and I want to create content because I know how to read labels and break things down and find hidden sugar and salt. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to create more content. I'm just, listen, we in our 40s, right? Like some of us on here, we are not a part of that generation where we want to do this all day, every day, edit and make reels. And it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I will do better in 2023. So please don't look at my handful of posts as like, what am I joining? Catalyst for Kidney Care on Instagram and she's not posting. I will do better. And I'm learning that it's not about perfection. As long as I'm getting the information out to the people, if it's raw, if it's uncut, if I'm doing it in my car after I leave the store, whatever the case might be, as long as it's helping somebody, that's what's important.
But you
So
also
we're on.
said about reading labels. So like we need to learn how to do that.
Oh,
So even just that alone is just so important, right? So I know I've learned so much information from even just us having this conversation, and I know many people who have joined us this evening have as well. I'm so grateful that we were able to have this conversation. I know you and I had a conversation, and I said, you know what, this is what we want to do. We want to do this in the top of the year, and I thank you so much for for even sharing this information. And there is going to be a part two. Definitely part two, because we
Yes.
need to bring you back. But how can we follow you? How can we support? Does Catalyst have any upcoming events? Because we want to support you there.
Thank you so much. So Catalyst for Kidney Care is our name on Instagram. So we are CATALYST 4FOR, not the number, Kidney Care. And you can follow us. We had an awesome bowling party last year that just exceeded my expectations. We just had a ball, okay? And I have such talented entrepreneurial friends. So between the sponsors that we had last year, we're combating diabetes, so I have to figure out a better way. But we had a dessert table that was out of sight last year for those that were there, because I have so many friends in the baking business that are so talented. I mean, vegan desserts, we had everything under the sun you could think of. Our raffle table I featured all Black-owned businesses. So we had a silent auction because I really wanted to expose people to Black-owned businesses and my friends who have businesses. So that was awesome. We had an education station where you could sign up to be an organ donor. Oh, we have to talk about that. Black people don't want to give blood, plasma, no less an organ, honey
Mhm.
child. We would rather the organ go into the ground, never to be seen or used again, and to save somebody's life. And God created us with two kidneys, and you only need one. And we are dying in
Mhm.
disproportionate numbers from kidney disease, and folks walking around here with two good kidneys. Like, it just don't make sense, right? And
Mhm.
so that's a whole nother conversation. So we had it so that people could sign up to become organ donors. We also took blood pressure. It was awesome. We had great giveaways and great information. I told people, please don't go home and eat the cupcakes and then throw the information in the garbage. Like, I need you to read this, because half of the people, probably 65% of my guests, had high blood pressure the day that that blood pressure was taken. So it just proved that the people at my bowling party who I love and care about had high blood pressure, and that's concerning for me. So
Mhm.
our Bowling for the Cause event, I'm so excited. Our second annual is March 5th. That
All
is
right,
two
March
days
5th.
March 5th. It is 2 days before my kidney versary. So I'll be celebrating 2 years with my sweet baby kidney bean. That's what I call her. She has a name, a whole name. Okay. Like, she's sweet baby kidney bean. And if you see me grabbing my abdomen, I'm not with child. I'm just holding kidney bean. Um, and we are having this bowling party at the AMF bowling lanes in Garden City. I can somehow disseminate the flyer to you to post. Well,
Mhm.
I'll put it out there though on my social media pages as well, my personal and Catalyst. And it is $40. We are going to have an amazing time. So it's educational, it's fun, it's a family affair, and it's a tax deductible donation because we are a 501c3 nonprofit. And then October 1st, we postponed it. We were supposed to have it MLK weekend, but we're going to push it back because we understand the holidays. It's a tough time to try to get people to buy tickets.
She said,
I'm
I'm
going to
going
win.
to
My
win.
friends are funny.
Yeah.
Listen, my friend, it was people. So Trader Joe's is one of our corporate sponsors. People was fighting over Trader Joe's. I'm like, come on, y'all. Like, Trader Joe's is up the street. Like, I'm going to need y'all to go buy your own healthy snacks. But
So you have a
our
website, hon? Do you have a website with all your
So,
information?
so we do not have a website as of yet. It is coming. I did the 501c3 process myself, and it's a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
I am learning to do things in increments because I'm a taskmaster, and if I had it my way, I wouldn't launch anything until it's all complete. But I'm learning that I can't afford to wait because people need this information. So we started with Instagram, and from my understanding, the website will come, but people just seem to like the social media component more than going to an actual website now. But and I will have that with the Eventbrite link to purchase tickets and all of that information. Then we are having October 1st, which seems like it's far away, but the Advocate for Your Health luncheon that we postponed is going to be off the hook. So the bowling party is informational, it's engaging, but the Advocate for Your Health luncheon, my dietitian, my personal dietitian who might be on this line, Elizabeth Madison, who is the pillar, like, she's a pillar in the community, like Queens people, like, people know Elizabeth, okay? She has her own practice. She has a practice of women of color dietitians that work under her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's awesome. She is going to be our guest speaker. She is going to teach us how to read our lab work. We need to know that. We need to know how to read our blood work. It is 2023. You should have an app on your phone, My Chart, no matter what hospital your doctor's affiliated with. You should see the results before they can even call you and give them to you. And you should know what a normal glucose looks like. A creatinine is your kidney function. All of these things, she's going to teach us that. She's going to teach us how to read food labels. She's going to teach us about our metabolic health, how our body breaks down food. We need to stop eating canola oil. Okay, these oils are causing inflammation in our body, and we wonder why so many people have autoimmune diseases and hypertension and joint pains and, you know, fibromyalgia and arthritis and all of these things. So she's going to go in depth. And from the standpoint of melanated folks, because we get it, we want to eat good food. It needs to be seasoned. How can I still live my best foodie life and at the same time live my best life, right? Like, and still be healthy. So we're realistic over here at Catalyst. How can we reach the people in a way that is realistic and relatable? So I will post all of this information on our page. I'm going to post some footage from last year's bowling party so you can see how great of a time we had.
Nice.
And it's going to be great. And our part two, I have notes, y'all. Like, I did historical research
Yeah, she got
on
all this
Black people.
information that's why we have to have a part. We definitely have to have a
We
part
have to
two.
have a
So
part two.
we will definitely, do that, arrange the date and the time. And then of course I will share it. She will share it on Catalyst
Yeah.
and we can have this discussion.
Yes.
And just so you guys know, this will be available on Catalyst page, and it will be here on my Instagram page, and it will be posted on my YouTube page, Saya B. Hagen. So you can go back and watch the replay if you missed anything.
Yes. In the interim, if I could just leave a takeaway,
Yes, please do.
please be an advocate for yourself. You need to go to see your general practitioner as soon as possible. If you have not gone in the last year, the last 12-month calendar year, you need to go see your general practitioner. When you go, you're asking them for a full workup, which means there are tiers to physicals that most people don't realize. You want to know your creatinine level. Okay, you want to know, if you say to the doctor, what's the test that tests your kidney function? Oh, you don't need that. By Dr. Such and Such. I want, and I'm saying that in the colloquialisms that we use, like, no ma'am, no sir. Okay, I need to know if I've had high blood pressure for the past however many years. I need to make sure that hypertension isn't scarring my kidneys. You need to know that, okay? Your thyroid, like, you need to have all of that checked. They're taking blood work and urine anyway. You've paid your copayment. It's not going to cost you more. It's included in what your insurance is paying. Exactly right. So you need a full workup. If anything comes back that is concerning, my cholesterol's too high, my blood pressure's too high, my glucose level, my A1C is too high, something seems to be off, you need to follow up with whatever specialist. Like, for me, I was severely anemic. Ladies on the line, you're anemic. You need to see a hematologist. Stop walking around just thinking anemia is normal. You'll mess around and be like me, where you're standing having a conversation with someone and you're out of breath because your blood cell count is outrageously low, right? You don't want that to be the case. So you need to follow up. If you have to take a day off work, if you look at your calendar, you say, okay, I'm on vacation. We don't want to go to the doctor. We want to do what we want to do on vacation. But you're not going to be here to go to Cancun if you don't go, okay? So certain things first, right? We have to prioritize. And also, you need to see a dietitian. If you're having issues with any kind of cholesterol, blood pressure, glucose, you need to see a dietitian, because doctors are not trained in nutrition, and that is not speculation, that is fact. This is why if you go to them and you say, hey, can I take elderberry syrup during the winter to help boost my immune system, they're gonna, oh no, this, that. They're not going to go deep because they're not trained in that. That's why you have dietitians. So you need to see a dietitian that will look at your lab work and put you on a food plan that will help you get that cholesterol down, right? That will, maybe they'll tell you, like, we need to include oatmeal for breakfast and take out shellfish, whatever the case might be. That's what a dietitian does. So let's not procrastinate. Let's not wait. Let's be committed to doing better in this new year. And that starts with being your own advocate. And advocacy is not, I don't like this doctor, I'm done with all of this, I'm frustrated, and I'm just going to suffer in silence. That's not advocacy. You do your research, okay, and you make an informed decision. And They are your wellness team. That's how you look at it. I'm going to see this doctor, this specialist, this dietitian, because they're a part of my wellness team. My personal trainer is not separate from, it's all one, because they all have to understand my situation to get me to the goal, right? So it's my wellness team. They're trying to help me to get off of this medication. They're trying to help me to lower my A1C. That's how we have to look at it. And if you don't feel that way because your doctor's bedside manner is not that, then you find a new doctor. But you don't give up on your health.
All right. Thank you so much, Regina. I
You're
appreciate you coming
welcome.
on.
Thank
There
you.
will definitely be a part 2. Make sure that you either, if you missed some of it, you can watch it here, you can watch it on Catalyst, or you can go to my YouTube channel at SariaBehagan.com. I'm sorry, Behagan. I'm sorry, not .com. I was going to give you my website. Nope, not the website. My YouTube, Saria Behagan. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for participating in this conversation. We will let you know when we will have the part 2. All right. Thank you, Regina, so much. Thank you. You dropped so many jewels. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Have a good evening.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.